Welcome back everybody, episode 3, descent, ILS approach, landing through to shutdown in the PMDG 777-300ER. Hit like, hit subscribe, hope you're enjoying the series so far. Share your thoughts, comments, any tips as well down in the comments section below. We're going to dive straight in as we close in quickly on London Heathrow. So thankfully we've done a lot of our descent preparation on the ground at Manchester because we're not in flight. There's a lot less pressure at that point in time because we're on the ground, we haven't gone anywhere. But also it's a very short sector, so we need to have that preparation done before we take off because there's simply no time otherwise during the flight. Showing you our Navigraph charts, the Honolulu 1 hotel arrival brings us in through the Honolulu VOR, which is just south of Birmingham Airport, working southeast through to Soppit. There's a constraint there at flight level 150, and then routing through the Westcott NDB towards the Bovingdon VOR, where we need to be achieving flight level 70 with a couple of maximum speeds there as well. So Westcott max speed 220, and that's carried further into Bovington flight level 70. The initial approach at Bovingdon when we do get there looks a bit like this. We're going to head outbound 126 degrees down towards 3,500 feet, or perhaps even 3,000 feet over this basically central London, turning over the Thames round to intercept the ILS for 27 left. We've got to make sure that we've got the ILS frequency tuned in correctly, and with that in mind we're going to prepare for a Cat 2 ILS. Although we will hand fly the last little segment, we've got a bit of prep to do. We're going to move that UFT once again to the centre, and we're going to press the button and head to our performance tool. Landing en route, import from OFP, select 27 left. Import the aircraft details, and if we're going to use reversers, we want to tune that to all op and select a relevant auto brake setting. Auto brake 2 will be more than sufficient. And we're going to then import the weather and press calculate. And it's going to give us a bit of a view of our reference speeds. Now we've already got everything input here. So we're going to press init ref. And we're going to put our estimated landing weight from our SimBrief flight plan in here, which is 202 tons, rounded up loosely. And today we're going to fly a flat 25 approach into London Heathrow, carry a little bit more speed on the approach just to make it a bit interesting. So that's going to give us a VREF of 141 knots. And we want to press arrivals, and we want to go back in here to ensure that we've got everything set up correctly. We mentioned earlier on the charts we have to make sure that our frequencies are set correctly. So in the NavRad page we've got the ILS 109.5 and the course of 269 degrees for the ILS. That matches that for 27 left on the chart, so that's all good. Happy with that. If we want to preset any NDBs, for example, like the missed approach routes towards the Epsom NDB, but actually covers DME from the London VOR 1136, which it will automatically tune for us anyway. If we want to tune the Epsom NDB, we can do so by tuning 316, and I'll just put it into ADF right for now so it's out of the way. We'll use VOR left for any missed approach using that London VOR. Further down we want to identify the Cat 2 ILS rad outs, and we've got RA102. So we're going to press the collar across to radio mins, and we're going to scroll it. Depending on the livery, you might get it in different locations. Today it's in the top right in this British Airways livery, and we're going to scroll that until it says 102. And again, pressing and holding shift accelerates that a little bit. We want the weather. Into London Heathrow, winds are variable 180 between 250, which might make it interesting, around 8 knots, and the QNH, more importantly, 1020. So we're going to scroll that wheel, like so. So we've now got VREFs, rad outs set there, 102, and the local QNH set. Let's put the UFT back where it belongs. We'll load up the electronic flight bag and we'll just load in a little bit there. If you want to create a fixed ring around the airport, we can select a reference point. So runway 27 left, for example. We're going to go fix. Runway 27 left, and we can pop in the usual kind of 4 miles and 8 miles to help us with our deceleration. Reset MCP altitude is now a warning because we're rapidly closing in on our top of descent. We're going to set 7,000, like so. Keeping that heading bug aligned as we fly along. And I have reduced our speed to 280 knots a little bit here, and that's because I just wanted to buy a little bit more time prior to our top of descent. We're going to set our auto brake setting at 2, and a quick check of the overhead panel to make sure everything's set as we wish. For the descent, if you want to change the speed, we can press VNAV, go to the descent VNAV page, and we can go /280 to manually change that speed, like so. And then as we activate through top of descent, we should be able to go back to our FMS speed, and it will allow us to descend at this speed until the next constraint, which is Westcott 220 knots. The descent forecast is something we already did, and the transition level is flight level 70 today. Take whatever ATIS you might have and set that accordingly if you're using live weather. And it'd be good to kind of look at the actual touchdown area to see where we might vacate. So runway 27 left, nice long runway here at Heathrow, over 3,600 meters. We'll touch down around November Bravo 3, on that little red line there roughly, and we're probably going to find that we will decelerate in time to vacate November 6, if not November 7. Typically November 6 is where a lot of these heavies are going to vacate from. And down we go. So I'm going to press the speed select switch, which will put it back into FMS speed mode, and it's targeting that custom speed of 280 that we've just set a little moment ago. And then we work into the descent. We can bring our range ring in just to clarify what we'll be doing a bit more closely, and you can see that it expects to level off just prior to Bovingdon, or just after Bovingdon in fact, at 7,000. That's okay. Remember, for this approach I'm not going to be using flap 30 today. We're going to work down to flap 25 only, which will mean that we're slightly quicker. If you want to, you can set up for a flap 30 approach and scrub a little bit of that speed off. Now we're getting a little closer, so we're going to pop the seatbelt signs to the on position. If you're leaving them on automatic, that's also fine. And we want to make sure that we've set all of our lighting for our approach. Checking all of the overhead panel, and we want to also press the recall button just to check for any warnings as well. If you find that the aircraft is slipping away a little bit and struggling to maintain those speeds, use a little bit of speed brake to help slow you down. But it's worth saying there's no flight detent in this like there is on a 737. The aeroplane will decelerate quickly, and if you find that you've only got a few knots, it might be easier to leave it as it is. If it's slipping away quite considerably, then proactively use that speed brake to help decelerate the aeroplane, and it would be worth just monitoring that deceleration to gently close the speed brake in as you approach the speed target prior to the engines then kicking in with the auto throttle. But as you can see, the VNAV does a really nice smooth job of this. It's already now working into the descent, so let's help it out. It wants to go to 240 knots. Let's bring the speed down. And I'm going to manually intervene, and I'm going to ask it to set 220 knots. We'll keep the vertical speed alive, and we'll maintain 1500, we'll call it 2000 foot per minute, just to try and continue to achieve 7000 by Bovingdon. And through 10,000 feet, all the landing lights and runway turn-off lights can come on, and the taxi lights can come on. It's getting a little darker now, so let's get snazzy and turn the logo light on as well. Why not? Might as well use it. And again, we bring that range ring in once again. I'm actually going to set 215 now, which is minimum clean. Any slower than that up marker, we're going to have to extend flaps. We've got flaps 1, flaps 5 to pay with first. Now I want to set 120 degrees. You could leave it on LNAV and just fly the magenta line, but I'm now going to show you vectors. So we're going to leave bobbing and heading 120 degrees. And I'm going to select flap 1, and that's going to allow me to slow down to about 210 knots approximately. And as we increase the flaps, we're going to increase lift, but we're also going to increase drag as well. 7,000 through Bovingdon. Aircraft's going to level off, make sure the speed brakes are closed, retracted, and it'll work to capture that. Cabin ready, there's our cabin secure chime. And crossing Bovingdon, we're going to go heading select mode on automatic, and we're going to set 3000 vertical speed, and we'll go for 1800 foot per minute to begin with. That's going to have us achieve 3000 a bit too quickly, so we're going to go to 800 foot per minute. Through transition, we'll go to the local QNH. So as we get a little bit closer, we're going to want to make sure that we are on flap 5 to establish, and that we make the turn nice and early to get that nice maximum 30-degree intercept for the ILS, the 27 left. And we want to be flying at our flap 5 speed as well. As we get established, we want gear down and we want to start extending the flaps through to flap 15, and then as we make our final approach, we're going to start reducing the speed down to 160 knots till 4 DME, bringing those flaps out to flap 25 before settling the aircraft in for a stabilised approach prior to 1,000 feet. If it's not stable, we go around, we try again. At this point I don't envisage needing speed brake anymore, so we're going to arm the speed brake. So I've pulled that into the arm position and we got that speed brake armed indication like so. 800 foot per minute out of Bovingdon is a nice descent rate. 800 to 1000 foot per minute depending on your speed. If it's about 210, it'll be a good sweet spot. Again, another check of the overhead panel. Everything's looking good. And the cabin's now advised. We've got the cabin secure from the back. Over to the init page, FMC1, and we can see there that the VREFs are actually matching up now with what we put in earlier. And we're now picking up the ILS. So we want to make sure where it says ILL 269, that matches what we're expecting. And you can see on the charts, the 3-letter identifier for this approach is ILL 109.5 and the inbound course 269. So that all matches quite nicely. I'm going to bring that rate of descent down to 500 foot per minute now. And with that, we'll start to bring the speed down. You might find, like it did earlier on through Westcott, it doesn't want to fly at 220 knots. It's quite slow for one of these. You just either have to work with it, preempt it, and get ahead of it, or do what I did and just kind of deal with it as you cross in through Westcott as best as you can. One above. And I find a heading 120 brings you out over central London quite nicely, with enough space for a decent turn. I'm going to extend flap 5 now. Just to help bring that nose down. .600 foot per minute, and we'll start the turn in. Initially 170, and now let's target our flap 5 speed, 175. Bring that rate of descent back to 800 for now, just so we're level at 3 into the turn. And as we almost cross the River Thames, we're going to go right 230. Like so, approach mode armed, and we're now working to establish over central London, passing Parliament and the London Eye at our flap 5 speed. We've got lock and glide slope now armed on our primary flight display, making sure we're briefed for the missed approach. We'll bring that range ring in a little bit more. There's the runway. That's 27 right. We want 27 left. There's the turn, so we're established now, locks active, glide slopes armed, gear down, and we're going to extend through to flap 15. Continuing the flap extension, flap 20, speed 160 until 4 DME. And finally, flap 25. Glide slopes alive, aircraft's pitched down, final descent. Missed approach is 3000, so that's already set. Gear down. And green, flap 25 green, order brake set, parking brake is off. If we're flying into terrain, it might be handy to have the terrain mode on. And we're starting to get the call outs from our aeroplane. Five knot crosswind. More like 3 to 4 knots, I suppose. A little bit of crabbing going on, as we can see. But in any case, looking absolutely spectacular with this sunset in the background. Really, really nice. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Back in the flag. Set 141, +5 146. Looking to be stable by 1000. We've got 600 foot to go now. Land 3's active. And it's pre-armed the auto land if we wanted to be using that. We'll cover that on another episode. Check. Hands on the throttle ready. Hands on the controls ready. And feet ready to go on my rudder pedals. Entirely up to you when you turn the autopilot off. I'm going to do it now. 2 clicks. Sudden switch of wind direction there. And we've got a warning of checklist incomplete, but that's fine, we'll disregard that.
50 above. Decide.
50, 30, 20, 10.
Looking ahead. And gently down. Reverse screen. Leaving the auto throttle in there, you might have noticed. And then a little bit of manual brakes. We've missed our rapid exit, that's fine. We're coming through sort of 70 odd knots. We'll turn the reversers off. And then we've got to bring the speed right down in order to vacate here at this right turn. As we do so, let's get proactive. Thinking about where we're going to be parking. We want Terminal 5, so it's going to be left on Alpha, like most at Heathrow here. For the heavies, we could do Bravo or Charlie as well. We'll take T5B. And as we vacate, we're going to set flaps to 0, and we're going to disarm the speed brake, which is going to then retract that, and remembering to turn carefully. Landing lights off, runway turn off lights off, strobe lights off, and we can then pop the APU on start, transponder as required. I'm going to pop it on standby, traffic mode off, and the weather mode can come off as well. Turning into T5B. And we'll go for stand 544, and I'll set it up on GSX. And we can pop the flight directors off for the next flight. Clear those warnings, just in case we get any additional ones. .544's coming up. So just prior to parking, confirm the stand. There it is. Taxi lights off. Again, slightly overshooting the arrow. Good scenery does help. And then full tiller deflection with a little bit of power perhaps required. Just to keep you rolling in the turn. Picking up that VDGS as we make our way in. APU's running, good. So that should have the packs. And then just working to park up as neatly as we can on that centre line, following the VDGS guidance. A little bit of gentle braking just to sort the aeroplane out, keep that speed scrubbed off. And we'll set that. Part brake on. Always says too far, but GSX never gives us a smooth run down to the parking. And we'll make sure that auto brake is set off. Just check your trim, make sure it is in the green arc as well. If it's wildly out, what you might want to do on the taxi in is just bring that into a much more reasonable kind of neutral position around 5, if you so wish. And there we have it. All we've got left to do is shut the aeroplane down. So APU's already on, generators on, and we've got the landing of all the lights and everything off except for beacon, nav and logo. So fuel control lever, left and right to cut off. Get the various ECAM warnings. We can pop the engine status page on at the bottom if we want to as well, just to help with that. And as the aircraft spools down and the N1 is almost at 3 or almost on 0, we can pop that beacon light off. And then we can disembark the aircraft, calling that jetty, getting all the punters off. So we go to ground operations, ground connections, set chocks and jetway request. And there it goes. And then we'll disembark the aeroplane. And that is the end of episode 3, folks. Covering up full flight now across 3 episodes from cold and dark at Manchester Airport all the way through to shutdown here at London Heathrow. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hit like, hit subscribe, share your thoughts below, and I'll see you for any future live streams going forwards. Take care. Thanks for watching.